Well, here we are after all. Hello everyone, I'm Milo and welcome to my town. And welcome to another episode of The Completions Way. This time we are in Yakuza Like a Dragon, or Yakuza 7 for short. So I know I had said that I would make a video in Yakuza 7 only if, for some reason, there was some niche topic that was not that covered online. Well, as it turns out, almost everything about this game was indeed widely covered, but I definitely wanted to make a video about the game after I had played it. That's what I kept telling myself as I was going through it, though I wasn't exactly sure about what I wanted to make it. And it just so happened that as I played and completed more of the game, all that would come to my mind was to cover my completion experience on the game. So, here we are now. I'm not sure if I ever mentioned it on the channel before, but ever since I kept playing through the series and was aware of 7, I knew for a fact that the game was pretty big, and I kept hearing that for seeking completion, some parts of it were hard. Though I never delved into the specifics, as I wanted to keep the surprises for when I played it. What I did know is that because in 7 they went from a brawler to a combat RPG, I had my concerns over how set difficulty would actually plan out. Regardless, I was pretty excited to get to this game due to the massive praise that it had received since it released. And boy, was I not disappointed. I'll talk more about my personal thoughts and experience on the game later, but for now, let's get to the main topic. This is how I got 100% completion in Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, as I mentioned earlier, partly due to this game's massive influence and market success, there is a coverage for almost everything on it. As such, unlike my videos for 4 and 5, where I aim to really cover a lot of the minute details for doing requirements, I will go more lax for this one. What I mainly aim to cover in this video is to show what I did and how I did it, minimizing the effort of certain tasks. With that, let's define exactly where do we set the mark for 100% on this game. For instance, if all you really wanted was to get the Platinum trophy, then I'd say, with a big asterisk, that is quite an easy task. Most of the achievements of the game are almost guaranteed to be acquired by you simply playing through it, as they're relating to beating chapters, leveling up, and doing the drink links with your party members. Stuff that's very easy to encounter on your own, and that the game urges you to check out. So besides some specific ones, I'll probably not be mentioning achievements at all in this video. The main elephant in the room that I want to address is the completion list. Or that's what a long-time fan of the series would call it, as it's technically not a completion list anymore. Heck, even in 6 it wasn't called completion list, rather it was only called awards. The difference being is that if you did complete the requirements in 6, you'd still get an item reward. Whereas here in 7, there's not actually any reward for getting all the little counters to 100%. It's a little bit disappointing. But nevertheless, as a veteran series completionist at this point, I most definitely took it upon myself to do everything listed here. Heck, I went beyond what was listed. You see, for certain categories, such as class weapons and gear, you're only asked to get a specific amount of them for the completion items to be marked as done. However, if you click details on them to check the list of the items, you'll see that the total amount of them is higher than what they ask you. So I did take it upon myself to get every single trackable this game has. Now, I will admit, up until this point I had a script written and I was knowing what I was saying, but I wanted to go off script from this point onwards, and that's because I usually do it this way and it tends to flow better. I do have a list of points that I want to talk about so that I don't get completely lost. So what I'm gonna try to do is try to explain the different avenues that this game has where there's stuff to do and track. I won't go into a specific order, though when we get to the completion list part, I will list the order that's there. So, okay, let's begin then. For starters, if there's something that I just don't comment on, then it's probably something that's likely very easy to do or self-explanatory, so I won't waste your time just talking about it. For everything else, I think at least it merits a bit of explanation, so I will definitely be mentioning some other things like that. The first item that we'll discuss about is the personality stats. As you play through the game, you will start to get these semi-naturally. In reality, a lot of the activities in the completion list will give you some of this, so you will naturally start growing on them. There are some other ways to get them, like the Ounabara Vocational School. In fact, that's where you'll get most of them, most likely. In addition, during certain sub-stories or even story segments, when you're presented with certain conversation options, sometimes one of the options will give you a personality and another will give you another. In some other cases, if you choose wrong, you will get nothing. But in the end, it's not incredibly knowledgeable for the most part. A few of the stats actually do have items that you can continuously buy to increase them, but they tend to be the easier ones. For me, and I think for most players, Charisma tends to be the stat that is the hardest to max. I think maybe there's not enough of it in other sources, including the Ounabara courses, so you tend to fall short. Again, if you really need the points, that you could try chasing some of the completion list items that give them, but sometimes they're kind of limited or they take a bit of grinding. If you're looking to it in the long run, then maybe it's fine for you. But I did this relatively earlier than most of the other completion stuff, so I did try to rush it. Now there is something that you can do. For one, if you own any of the DLCs of the game, I believe you are handed a set of boosters for your personality stuff. However, I believe that wasn't enough for me, and I did have the DLC. The other thing that you can do is what they call the Sotenbori sprint. This is a set path that the community came up with that takes place in Sotenbori to collect, I think, every single suitcase that can have items on them. Some of the items that can be found on these, which are random, can be the personality enhancing ones. So when people needed personalities, they would do this. As I said, I didn't have to do it. I actually don't really remember how I got the top charisma. I think I probably did a few of the completion list items, and then that was it. Because I do believe you need to max almost all of them to date every single female character. The next item are the Dream Links, or the bond between Ichiban and his party members. There's not too much to say about this one, but in a nutshell, when you have party members in your active party, Ichiban will be growing friendlier to them. And as you reach the different levels, you are gonna be able to go to the survive bar and talk to them and progress on their little side story. Some characters may be blocked in story to progress, but overall this isn't really that bad, because there's some points in the game where you can just really easily do battles, or you may need to grind, and you will naturally get the rankings up. So it's not that terrible, but at the very least I thought I would mention it. Another random item that I wanted to come across is table talks. So these ones are triggered in restaurants when you eat specific dishes. Some of them may require a specific story progression because of the characters that they come. This may come up later in the completion list, but I mention it now. The easiest way to get all of them is to simply order every single item in the menu of every restaurant, and that will trigger any ones that you have not seen yet. They do not repeat. Now, not every single restaurant has them. I can provide a link of the ones that do have them, so you can do that. But in case you don't remember which one it is, and if you don't want to bother to look at which specific dish or this combination actually triggers one of these table talks, then simply order everything in the menu. Towards the end of the game you should have enough money that you can afford it, so do not worry about that. Okay, those topics were mainly related to exploration. How about we go to some battle-themed ones? Next one is Sujimon. So as you know, the Sujimon is kind of like Pokemon, but in reality it tracks the different types of enemies in the game. It's more like a bestiary. There's a total of 252 unique enemies in the game. This includes bosses and sub-story unique enemies as well. Now, you are only really required by achievements and by the completion list itself to get 200 of them, but there is an extra thing if you do see all 252, or rather 251, because the final one is the legendary Sujimon. I won't spoil it, but I will say that it's a little bit weird because you probably need to kill level 70 enemies to see all of them. and the last one is level 30, so like the battle isn't even anything special. But nevertheless, what I would recommend for Sujimon is that you can look up lists online and see where they spawn and try to hunt for them. I would recommend that you do most of the other combat things in the game first, such as the part-time hero rescue missions or beating the different dungeons like the Millennium Tower or the Sotenbori Battle Arena. When you do these ones, you will see the grand majority of enemies in the game, mainly in the towers. And then if you do the rescue missions, then there's a chance that you will meet enemies that you haven't seen before. Only if after you're done that you still miss some of the Sujimon, then probably try to hunt them down. Of course, only if you want. The thing with this is that I did this in the opposite order. I first hunted for all the 252 or 251, and then I did the rescue missions for part-time hero. And it would have just saved me so much time if I had done it in the opposite order, because for the part-time hero ones you may need to go through some dungeons like the underground segments or towers just to get to specific enemy types, or just be farming certain areas to get some to spawn, so you might find those other ones while you are doing that. If you did that earlier than just to hunt for some specific enemies, it may be annoying. Specifically, there is one part of the map, which I don't remember the name, but it's close to Pocket Cafe, where there's a lot of spawns that can happen in there, and the distribution is kind of weird because sometimes you just don't roll the group you want. So that was annoying. So if you want to get all of the Sujimon, do it after you've done the rest of the combat stuff in the game. There's a little bit that you can see of extra content, but it's nothing crazy. So if you still want to see it, take my advice and do it afterwards. And then another point before we get to the true part-time hero or completion list side, the Poundmates. There's not much to say here, you will get most of them through sub-stories, but there is I think 2 or 3 that you need to buy the license to use. You buy this with the Tojo Clan crests that you can collect across the towns. Now, something that I don't really get about the Tojo Clan crests is that I think they're static spawns. I thought they were random at first, but after a while when I was in endgame I never really saw them again, so I assumed that if there were some that I hadn't collected, it was in really remote places. I believe you need 50 per one of these licenses for the Poundmates. Again, I think it's 2 or 3. So definitely use your Tojo Clan crest to buy that. I managed to redeem them and be just fine, and I think I was missing a few to buy like the blade that Camelot sells, but that's also available in Le Marché, so I ended up buying it there instead. It's better that you use 2 crests for that, because I don't really know if you can get more unless you New Game Plus. So yeah, just do that to get them in there, because again you need to use every single Poundmate I think. So get those there with your Tojo Clan crests. Now let's get into the real meat and gritty, part-time hero. In the part-time hero section is where the completion list is housed, as well as some other requests. You get this partly through the introduction of the game, and I will admit that I was a little bit worried because there was no completion list, but when I got to that point where they give it to you, I got so many things instantly completed, like a few minutes scrolled while I got all of my things, and that also gave me a lot of personality points. So we'll go in order for these ones. The first category is the part-time hero requests. These ones are mainly collecting some items and then delivering them to the people of part-time hero. There's a few others that are also missions and they get completed automatically. These ones are usually not that bad, or is finding people. Some of them are a little bit hidden, so you could try a guide if you definitely cannot find someone, because the clues that I give you sometimes are really vague. As for the items themselves, rule of thumb, I think almost every single unique item in the game is required there, so like in any store, any shop that you can buy items, buy at least like 2 or 3 of them, because you will probably require them. This even goes for like stuff that is only available in specific cities. There's some Kamurocho unique items or Sotenbori unique items. So you may not be able to do them all depending on your progression through the game, but in the end, when you can freely travel, you will probably be able. Now, some of the most annoying objects are the eggs and the cockroach. I'll begin with the cockroach. So technically, when you get bugs, mainly from the park, what you get is random, it's RNG. But at least in my personal experience, I think I got cockroaches a total of 2 times. And I did do the bug hunting for a decent bit. So I found it much easier to actually redeem them from the Conquest shop. You can redeem them there and you will probably get them easier in there. You need a few for these and a few for crafting gear, so yeah, I just ended up redeeming them from there. I just had no luck while getting them on the bug catching. The other thing that's a little bit annoying is the eggs. So in case you don't know, because I surely didn't know, in the Managemet Mode, Omelette the chicken, if you talk to it enough times, she will give you eggs. Now the thing is, this is cyclical, so she actually has like 23, 24, I'll put the exact number on screen right now, dialogues that she goes through, and once you finish them you will get an egg, and then the cycle repeats. If you were like me, then you probably tried to talk to her while you were doing Managemet Mode, like 1 or 2 times per time, and just nothing out of the ordinary with her. But in reality, there was a counter that was going through the different dialogues that they go. Now there are 3 types of eggs, and you are needed most of them to be delivered. There's regular eggs, quality eggs, and golden eggs. And they're kind of okay for use in battle, but I think they're mainly going to be used in this delivery. Now the regular egg, you will get it like 70% of the time most likely, so this is not that difficult. But for the quality egg and the golden egg, these ones do have a slightly low drop rate. Thankfully there is a way to cheese for them. If you get to the dialogue before you would get an egg and you save the game, when you come back and get the final dialogue and get an egg, if it's a regular egg, you can simply reload the file and try again. I think the RNG rolls every time that you get to the final conversation, so you can do this to get both the quality and the golden egg with relative ease. I think I didn't have to go like more than 5 or 10 for the quality and golden eggs respectively. I got them relatively quickly. If you generally go through the cycle every time, it will take forever, so do use this trick. Most of the rest of the items are not that difficult. The annoying part is that sometimes they're only sold in like single place in the entire game, so you need to go there, but besides that it is pretty simple. Then it's the rescue quests. These are the ones that usually ask you to defeat an X amount of a specific enemy. I will admit that I mainly did not progress through this while I was playing through the game originally. I guess I didn't really mind them too much, and I guess I just needed certain types of enemies, and I never ended up going to the place that they spawned, or I would just roll other groups of enemies while I was there, so I didn't really progress on this one. And it hurt me again because I had to spend like a good 2-3 hours maybe of just doing all of this. Again, it's just going to some groups of enemies. Sometimes it's just one because they're more powerful. Now what I will do is I will link a list that lists the locations of the enemies. That way you can more easily track specific groups down if you go to certain spots. There are a few that are tricky, and there are certain amounts of enemies that don't just spawn naturally that often, and it's a little bit easier if you go to like the Yokohama underground or even Kamurocho underground and just find them there instead, even though you then need to get out. It's a little bit annoying, but it tends to be the easier way to get some of them. So again, I will provide the list, and I don't really remember or know what the order that you get this from. I don't know if it's determined of what you have beaten or if there are some that are sequential. I guess depending on how you approach the game and fights that you got into, you will go through this. But overall, well, if you want to do them all, you have to get through them. It is a bit annoying, I will admit. But again, you will also probably get some of the Sujimon this way, so do try that. And then we get to the challenge requests. These ones are pretty much the ones that really mimic the completion list in other games. So let's go over some of them. First, party chat. So party chats are these speech bubbles that appear while you go through some parts of the different towns, and the party members will talk about something that's related to it or something that they see in their surroundings. I found them pretty interesting. It brings more personality to the game, and they're fully voiced, so that's really cool. The game asks you to find 100, but I believe there's 109 in total. I think it's worth going for all of them, so again I'll provide a list that lists all of them, and you can go talk to Iroha at Survive Bar and she will show you the list, so that way you can narrow down which ones you are missing and then just go into the list and try to find them yourself. Like, it may be some off corner of the map, or sometimes there's like really specific spots that you need to stand on in order to get the trigger for them. So maybe you didn't walk in the stack pixel and you didn't get it. Again, I definitely do recommend getting them. Some of them require certain specific things to have completed in the game already. But yeah, if you go towards the end or the end of your completion, then you can probably get them all. I really do recommend it. The next one is the CDs, one of the most disappointing things in the game, because it's not actual karaoke CDs but background music from Survive that doesn't even play through cutscenes, so boo-hoo. I think the game doesn't ask for all of the CDs, but I'm gonna tell you where you can get all of them. So you can get them from Shogi, from Conquest, you can get them from the Hamakita Part General Goods, the Pawn Shop, Dragon Cart, Batting Center, and the Sotenbori Pawn Shop as well. Now there's a few that are sold in the Isesaki Road pachinko slots, I think, but I never actually bothered with that, so it's not an additional one, rather there are some that are available there and elsewhere. Also do remember that you need to download some extra DLC that is free for the slots. But when I tried playing slots it was boring, so I did not bother with it. The DLC discs do not count for this, so just that you are aware of it. Next up is the insects or bugs. So again, most of these can be found by examining spots, mainly in Hamakita Park. I think there's some trees and some spots here and there in the cities where you can get them as well. Most likely you will get all of them in the end. You would think when you're first encountering silver and golden bugs that they are hard, but the reality is that, well, for some of the silver ones I'm pretty sure that if you look around some boss parts in the main story, of course you can't come back to these places, but sometimes there will be some that you can pick up in there. And the golden ones just rain down on you from Millennium Tower or Sotenbori Pearl Arena. The silver ones do tend to be a little bit more hard, but they can be redeemed in certain minigames, so in case you need them, they're also there. You'll probably not struggle with them too much unless you are going for all of the weapons, in which case then you may need to do some extra work, but overall not that much. I had worried about this when I was playing, but in the end I got them all naturally. The next item is generally one of the most annoying things in the game. It is the honks. This could be something that you may not even have stumbled across at all while you were playing the game. In reality I did find one of them kind of by accident, but I saved my game before and I did reload it afterwards because I didn't exactly know what was going to happen, and when I reloaded she wasn't there anymore. Color me surprised. So the honk people are 5 different people that appear throughout the towns. There's 3 in Ijincho, 1 in Sotenbori and 1 in Kamurocho. What they do is that they will give you a pleasant time, if you catch my drift, provided that you have money. It's better to carry at least a few 100,000 in your person because some of them are expensive, so you don't want to miss out if they do get to spawn. Now they appear in specific spots, but they are kinda random, they won't always appear. And the thing is, getting them to appear has been like a nightmare for a lot of people throughout these years, and there's always a lot of threats and information online. It's more like misinformation because nobody knew. But I think, and after I did it myself, after I spent hours trying to roll for them, I think the clue for them to spawn is to change jobs. For whatever reason, if you change jobs, I think the probability that a honk person is gonna be in their spot is higher. Almost none of them are exactly close by to taxi stops, so you have to go to a taxi and then go to the spot and they'll be there. Sometimes some of the other theories were like, don't go to the immediate closest taxi but go farther and then just get close by foot. But I think the trick is actually just to change jobs. Either change just Ichiban's job or everyone's job and then go. and that actually caused them to spawn. Like, I am reading a comment that I left on a YouTube video, and I think I had said that I just had to change jobs once and they were there. I struggled really with the Kamurocho one a lot. It was the last one that I was needed and it took ages to appear. But my point is, I think changing jobs is what causes them to appear, even if just temporarily, and you can just go back. I don't know, it's really weird. It pisses me off because it took me so long to do this one. It's so annoying, and I know a lot of people have struggled as well. The achievement for getting all 5 of the Hong Kong people to have met them is amongst the lowest ones achieved on Steam, so that lets you know how annoying this is, apparently. But oh well, I've rambled enough, so let's move on to the next one. And I'm gonna mention 2 really brief ones, so the restaurants and hostess clubs. So as usual, restaurants just order everything. Funny enough, there are more shops in town that the completion list doesn't track. I don't know why. I guess they decided it wasn't really important. You can go ahead and order everything everywhere if you want. That way you also discover all the food combos and what they do, but there's only a few. And then the hostess club. So funny enough, the traditional hostess club from the Yakuza series is not here anymore. I guess Ichiban is not really a ladies' man in that regard. But there's still 2. There's Lin Club and there's the one that's close to the Soul Plant. I forgot the name, but oh well. And the only thing that you can really do is like select girls, and that's it. And after you select some girls, some new ones will appear. That's the only thing that you need to do. It's kind of lame that they actually put them, but they're really nothing, so oh well. It's pretty much just select everything, and that is it. The next category is the gear. This is a pretty beefy one. So as I said before, you are only asked a certain specific amounts for like weapons for a specific class or even types of gear, but when you click the details you can see the full list of them. Now in order to get these, it's relatively straightforward. A lot of them are sold at different shops across cities. Others can be crafted or enhanced. So not all classes have craft weapons, but some of them do, and you can craft them. Now what every class has, however, is an upgradable weapon. First you will start with like the base level weapon, usually the first one, but when you strengthen it like 2 times it literally evolves and it becomes a new one. So you need to do this until it reaches its final level. Now when you reach the first stage of this final level, it is considered as acquired. For example, the legendary hero bat for Ichiban. Just getting it on its first stage is when you get it. However, it is able to go to rank EX, where even the icon changes a little bit, and this happens with all of them. The EX is not necessary for the list, but if you want it for it to be the strongest weapon, then you can do that. By the way, I made a guide that kind of talks about this. The main focus of the guide is how to make money in the game, like the best method, but overall the purpose is to get these EX weapons, so you can check that out if you want. Then after these 2, the other category of weapons is some that are just random drops. Some of these were really annoying, so it seems that there are some weapons that only appear as drops in mainly the Yokohama underground actually. There are some that are in the Sotenbori tower, but those ones are easy, either you just beat it once or with the requirement. But the ones that are in the underground, so you would think that they are easy, but there were 3 of them that gave me a nightmare of a time to find. And they were the wood yite or jite, I don't know how you pronounce it, the country sparkling, and the cotton anklet. Now, I will go into a bit of detail of these. Within the Yokohama underground, it seems like every save or every types of saves has a specific pool of items that you can pull from. Now, in every visit that you do, they reset, of course, but you need to get a little bit lucky. The thing is, for example, the wood yite. This thing is like one of the weakest weapons for Adachi's class, but for whatever reason it was the last one that I found. I don't know like if it doesn't spawn early in the dungeon, even though it's so weak. I only got it when you are able to go to the deeper parts of it, and I got it after so many attempts. I got it. I'm gonna put where I got it because I think I was seeing threads that some people were also struggling with this one. But I got it in this save right here. Now, something that I was seeing and I did and eventually ended up doing myself is that people were just not opening the saves. They went to the very end of the dungeon when you are able to save before the Sujimon boss fight. And then they went back and started opening the saves. The other two items that I had trouble finding were the country sparkling and the cotton anklet. And both of these I did end up finding in this room that has the homeless guy and the pornographer and this golden safe. You do need to bring golden keys. What I had to do here was reload myself until it dropped, but it was annoying and hard, let me tell you. And then the wood giant, it came from a regular silver safe, but my god, it took me so long to find. I have no idea why. It generally never dropped from the early rooms. I don't know why, because the weapon itself is really weak. I got it only all the way here and after many tries. Like, it was like 3 hours one hunting for these weapons. It was really annoying. In hindsight, it's easier to just get the materials and even money to craft the other weapons. So yeah, that's why I was saying that these were the annoying ones, because if it's something that you just have to buy or get a few materials to craft, then it's really not that difficult. By the way, the two DLC classes do not have this. I mean, I think there's only 2 weapons for them regardless, but they are not included in the list. You may end up getting them anyways, since they are very easy. I guess I'll also mention that there's a set of weapons that tend to drop from specific minigames, but they require like a high amount of points of each of those minigames to redeem. But you can actually buy pretty much all of these at Le Marché. The only problem is that they're 10 million yen each, I believe. So they're kind of pricey, but if you really want to get like them all marked as acquired, this is another way that you can do them without needing to really grind for eternity in the minigames. Before we jump into the minigames themselves, the final category for that is the different things that rely around defeating enemies as classes and in cities. So for every class that Ichiban has, and it only applies for Ichiban what he's currently equipped, you need to defeat 300 enemies while wearing that class. And then there's also things for defeating people in cities. Now getting the Ijincho one, the Yokohama one, is incredibly easy because you're there most of the game. The Kamurocho and Sotenbori ones are the ones you may need to grind, because surprise, both the underground and the Millenium Tower or Sotenbori Arena do not count for it. It's only in the streets, so you do have to do that. So if you're going for it, I recommend just picking a job that you haven't gotten the completion for and go to Sotenbori or Kamurocho and just start doing it. Sotenbori can be annoying because a lot of the times enemies don't really spawn too much. So I think what's better is to just keep using a taxi to the northeast corner. They tend to spawn relatively there and through the top of Sotenbori. Because if you keep going to the city, you may not find many, or you may just find groups of 1. So you want to get those numbers up quickly, and defeating 1 enemy per encounter is not really fast. In Kamurocho you would think that it was easy, but turns out no. There are some places where enemies don't really spawn. What worked best for me was sticking to the northern part of town. Like, I did loops around most of these parts, mainly because I was trying to spawn the Honk person in there, which didn't work. But I got most people to spawn in there, so try there as well if you want. I found it to be a good place. And now we finally get to the minigames. Now there's something that's a common thing for most of the minigames, and it's that pulling back from what Yakuza 6 started, a lot of them will just ask you to grind it for a certain amount of time just to meet a specific requirement. Well, it can be a little bit annoying, not much can be helped about it. Let's begin with the first one, Can Quest. This one overall is actually not that difficult, and it's actually quite fun. You will need to play to reach the max rank of collecting cans, but that's pretty much it. The rest of the completion things are pretty straightforward, and I do recommend that you save up the points that you get from this, because for some of the crafting things you may need them. There are a few items that are exclusive to this exchange, so do keep that in mind. Next is Dragon Kart. While I'll admit that a kart racer is fun at first, I think they went overboard with the requirement that they ask. In order to do everything, you need to win Grand Prix 50 times and do 30 time attacks. Especially the Grand Prix is annoying. Now it's just races within Grand Prix. And the first one, the Cerberus Cup, happens to be the fastest one, so you want to run this one until you get all of them. For the time trials, the fastest course is actually the Sonic Stampede, which is the first Kamurocho course. I'm gonna play a clip right now, but my best time ever was a minute 18 for all 3 laps. In fact, in this attempt that I'm recording right now, I almost broke it, but I just choked at the end, so I'll just let it play so you can see how I do it. I'm pretty sure I'm using the best card, which is the final one, and with the max upgrades. Thankfully this one is better, and I actually did have fun when I was doing this. Even though I was just grinding 30 time attacks, I did have fun improving my time over and over on this one. Next up, for the Seagull Cinema, it's just mainly playing them. I will admit that the final 2 or so do get pretty difficult, but they are nothing really crazy. And again, you will probably need to do like an additional 10 or so sessions. Definitely pick the last film because it has the most ramps, but yeah, you just have to keep doing it to succeed on this one. The next category is the Ounabara certificates, but I already briefly mentioned this. I found them very interesting because it's general trivia about different things. While you can buy some cheats, I actually only bought them after I had done all of them, so you can do that. Though what I simply did is, if I failed, I just reloaded and tried again, just to not lose my money. But it was cool because you do get to see some of the different questions if you do retries on them. Next up is Karaoke. You need to do 20 total, if I'm not mistaken. There's only 6 songs, I believe, so you do need to play them a little bit over and over again. By the way, if you do sing your teammates' songs, they give you Drinkling points for the bond, so you can also do that if you need it. Next one is the batting cages. For the first 3, which is the challenge modes, you just need to clear the easy, medium and hard cages. And as you know, at this point in this series, the shots are always determined, so you can just look up a guide to know exactly where the shots are coming and do it that way. The experts are not needed, but you can do them if you want. Then you have to do 200 home runs in a home run course. There is another mode which is the home run competition, which is kind of endless, but unfortunately that one does not count. You kind of have to repeat the home run course over and over again. I think I ended up doing the expert difficulty because they tend to be faster shots, and after a few attempts you will probably memorize the order that they come on, so it's easy to hit them too. Pretty much you have to play it at least 20 times to get the 200 points. Probably a bit more if you lose some of them, but yeah, that's all that there is to it. The next are the golf cages. These ones aren't really that hard. To be honest, I tried the difficulty ones and the bingo ones without even knowing anything about them, and I hit the score threshold on them very simple. You do get some rewards if you get like the max score up until S rank, I think it's counted, but you don't really need it. They give some items, but these items can be usually obtained elsewhere as well, so things like gear and weapons, they're not really necessary. Then you have to play, I believe, 20 total games. This can be either the bingo or the challenge. Now, funny enough, if you're on PC and you use some sort of auto-clicker, you will be able to get through this really fast. They only want you to play them, and unfortunately just joining one and leaving does not count. But if you use an auto-clicker with a low interval, it will just spam it and then take you out of the minigame, and when you go back, due to the positioning of the mouse, it will go into bingo stage, which I believe has a shorter in between the balls if you fail animation. You can also use a turbo button for this, and you would end up in the main courses, beginner courses. I think it takes a little bit more time, but what I'm saying is if you have some sort of method like an auto clicker or a turbo controller, you can just leave this idle for, I don't know, 5 or 7 minutes, and you should probably get it. Unless you really want to play golf, but I really chose not to do it because with the first play that I did of every mode, I literally made the completions. So do consider it as an option. Then it's darts and also the gambling games, both on the casino and on the gambling hall. Honestly, I don't have much to say about this. For darts, you can just buy the best ones and it'll be so easy to win. You have to play, I believe, 20 times against your friends, so just keep doing that. For the gambling games, same thing, I guess. There are no cheating items, so you kind of do have to play, but well, it doesn't take an insane amount of time, I would say. Thankfully, for some of them, they do allow you to choose the difficulty right away, like Koi Koi or Oichokabu, for instance. In previous games, you had to unlock them. In fact, I'll play a clip right now, and I think somehow I got like 4 pairs in Koi Koi, and that won the game instantly. That had never happened to me, by the way. That was quite crazy, I would say. The good thing is that in this game, it's only cumulative earnings, so it's not like in the previous game, which is like ever since you sat down, you need to live until you have an X amount more. And when you do meet the requirement, it will appear in the middle of the playing session, so you know when you need to quit. The next one is everyone's favorite game, Mahjong. You need to win at the 10 unique tables that the game has. It is quite an annoying process, especially for Vista Mahjong, which is the hardest venue. In order to unlock the royal table, I believe you need to win. The game tells you it's 3 times in any of the other tables, but I think I didn't actually do it like that. I did keep playing on some of the previous tables, and then I checked back with them and they let me eventually. So I think it may be just a total of 6 times in between the entire venue. Anyway, the requirement of just going out 30 times probably will get done as you are doing this. So just keep your chin up. It does take a good amount of time and you need to know your basics, but well, it's definitely doable. Next up is Shogi. Thankfully, this one does give us a break. The only real requirement is to do the puzzle Shogi stages, which get done like 1 or 2 moves at most. The solutions are uploaded to YouTube, so just look them up. The other requirement is to just win 10 times in Shogi, so you will do it at the same time. By the way, just a fun fact in here, have you seen this item in the Shogi exchange? It seems like a really weird item, and I think a lot of people were discussing what the hell it does. I think what it does is that it simply adds a new auto battle technique. It's kind of weird, it's just randomly there, and I think I found the answer on some Reddit thread while I was investigating about it. Curious fact for you. By the way, there's also Challenge Shogi, which is slightly different. Now, I've seen videos on YouTube that also cover them, and the first time clears to give you a good amount of points. If you end up needing Shogi points for redeeming bugs or something else, then you can also consider doing this. They're not really needed for the completion, but I also thought I'd mention this fact. And we're nearing the end. The next one is the UFO Catchers. There's 2 main anchors in Ijincho where you can find all of them. The one in Chinatown and the one in the commercial district. You'll be able to find all of them within here. In the completion list, for some interesting reason, there's only 15 needed, but there's an additional one for a total of 16. So to get them all, make sure to actually verify which is the 16th one that you don't have, and then go for it. Overall, the clock controls weren't that terrible, even though I did struggle with a few of the prizes, but nothing too crazy. The final minigame on the list are both of the Virtua Fighters. The first thing is to play as every character, and thankfully it's just as easy as selecting the character and immediately quitting the minigame. This alone counts for the list, so you don't have to bother playing a match with them. Then it's actually using one character to beat the entire thing. Unlike some earlier Yakuza titles, this time you actually need to beat Dural in the final stage, which is a little bit of a tricky thing because you do not get to retry that one. For Virtua Fighter 2, I recommend again, and I use Jeffrey McWild. He has a very spammable launch attack, so you can use that. When you do get to Dural, try to make your movements slowly and surely, because if you do get hit, then you will probably lose. You are trying to get them out of the ring. Now, I did realize that there's actually 2 versions of Virtua Fighter 2. There's 2 and 2.1, and even though there's difficulties as well, I was playing 2 easy, and it was still quite a hard time against Dural. It took me a few tries until I actually got it. I don't know if in 2.1 it is actually easier. I actually just realized as I'm recording this, like a month after I did it, that the 2.1 cabinets were at the other side. So I'm not too sure if it's easier or not. Maybe. What I'll say is that I did it in the Yakuza 5, and in there it was not hard at all. Like, I literally first tried it, so I don't know exactly what happened, but I've been hearing that from other people in forums and stuff that they also found it way harder here in 7 than in 5, for instance. Now for Virtua Fighter 5, I was talking about Yakuza 5 earlier, you also need to do it, and for this one I use Brad. I will link a YouTube video that showcases how I did it. I was trying with Jeffrey Maguire as well and some other characters that seemed like they could spam moves, but that duel is actually quite annoying, so I just found this strategy that uses Brad and I was able to win with him. So I recommend you do the same as well. And that's all of the minigames. The only remaining section of Part-Time Hero is the Management Mode. I won't really go in detail about this because, well, overall it's a bigger topic, but the mode is actually not that hard. Once you do get to the top, I believe you will never drop down, so in order to make the game easier, because you only really need to survive the stockholder meetings, I think you can like remove everyone from every business and you can just let it go like that, because you do need to like defeat 150 stockholders and this does not come easy, and unfortunately sometimes you'll only have 3 or 4 instead of the maximum 5 stockholders, so you may need to go another period just to get through that thing. The one other thing that I wanted to mention here is that the game only asks you to recruit about 10 employees, but there's an additional 12 out there, so if you want them all, you need to look for them. A few of them ask for some specific personality traits to be high, so you may want to do it at the end or just look for those ones near the end, but that's pretty much it. And with that, that's all the main trackable things that the game explicitly keeps track of. There's a few others that they don't specifically track, but that are still counted, because they are achievements. I'm only talking about the main combat focus things. So let's talk about that. First up, grinding. So I'll just briefly mention it. There are some achievements to say reach max rank. This is actually not entirely true. They consider max rank 30, which is the last rank where you get like a specific bonus or additional skills. Since everything that's after that is just permanent stat boosts to the character, I guess they don't count that as max rank. You don't need to do it for 7, but you will very likely do this by default, especially if you're grinding for the true final Millennium Tower. So the grinding spot, I guess you've seen it plenty. I'm not gonna really cover it, but it is in the Kamurocho underground on the 2nd floor. So you want to drop a save and then go there, and then there's 4 groups that have the highest tier commons guy, which gives a lot of XP. The best method to kill him is with Jungi Han's gun attack, but he also happens to be one of the best characters in the game, so you may want to be using him regardless. But there are some other options in case you don't want to do it with him. This will level up the entire party anyways. Now, levels for characters you really shouldn't worry. What worries the most is the jobs, because I think they're a little bit slower. There are, for every job in the game, 1 item that can boost by 50% the amount of job experience that they get, and they are usually in the bottom part of the equipment screens. You will only be able to see the one that is able to be equipped to the current job. Most of these you will get through sub-stories, so if you've done all the sub-stories you probably have them all. Now, there are a few jobs that you are able to either buy or redeem in certain places additional copies of these items, so if you want to grind jobs for different characters at the same time that are this same one, or just one for a particular character, you can just check out which ones you can have multiples of, and you can have a double increase to the job XP they get, and this is definitely really useful. Ichiban by default does have 1, the Dragonfish Tenuigi, and whatever the job 1 for his current job is, so you can actually have that. Use both at the same time and he will be getting double the job XP. For the other characters, it's not such that lucky. Yugi Han does also get 2 for some reason for his main job, but the other ones not so much. Anyway, as I said, I won't really go into detail about the grinding, but I just wanted to mention it because you definitely need it for the Millennium Towers. Well, I guess I'll mention here also the Sotenbori Battle Arena, but this one comes earlier in the game, and like the game definitely urges you to, hey, you should totally do it. And if you don't do it, you probably got your ass kicked by Majima and Sajima. I did that tower once when I was in there, and while the battle was hard, I didn't have to grind additionally. I lost it the first time, but then with a better strategy, I won my second time around. So you likely have done it. Again, there are some floors that maybe you didn't get the bonus reward initially because you didn't meet it for whatever reason. So there are some exclusive items that are there, like some weapons, but you may want to go back after you're like max level and try to clear every room with their bonus, just so you can have the bonus item whatever it is. Then for the Millennium Towers, the first one, the final Millennium Tower, you can be like around level 70 for that one. It is not that bad if you are that. I beat it at around 70 pretty much. And then to final, well, you do need to be 99 and your job at 99. And I've seen online that people recommend that you have other jobs maxed. So this isn't entirely necessary, but I do recommend that you at the very least take certain classes and rank them up a little bit so that you can have the permanent stat increases. I did personally get for some of the men the bodyguard for a little bit so that I could get more HP and defense. Or if you want some extra magic on some characters, then you can also do that. But you don't really need to get to 99. If it's one of the few jobs that you are able to actually get the ×2 XP thanks to the bonus items, then you definitely can do that. But when I beat the true final Millennium Tower, I was level 99, rank 99. I had done rank 30 into one other class, and I think like up until 20 or 25 into a second job. Most of the other jobs for all of my characters were at most at 10, so not that big. And while it is difficult, given that you've already done the original Millennium Tower, and specifically if you actually grind it for money, which again I did an entire video and a guide on that, so you can check it out, you probably know the layout already and the weaknesses of the enemies and all of that. What's important in true final Millennium Tower is that you don't really want to get hit like more than once in a row, because you will probably die. The enemies do that much damage that you are probably tanky enough to survive one of their hits, but no more than that. So like the second that your party gets hit, have your healer, hopefully you have an idol, just do the party wide heal and heal everyone back up, because it is necessary. You wanna get the hits on the enemies first, and when they do attack, just heal that back, because you can hardly take more than 2 hits. This is also why using electric skills helps a lot. If you proc a paralysis and then they actually don't get to act, then that helps you out a lot. The bosses are the least to worry about, but I guess do keep in mind that Amon has the orbital laser, and from what I heard, you actually cannot tank it. So I believe you have to kind of calculate when he's gonna do it next, and you need to cast the Masochist Boundmates with Ichiban. Though I did that and 2 of my party members died, I'm not entirely sure why, even though it should have tanked. Maybe their turns did run out, I did it a little bit too early. I'm not quite sure. But I think if you survive the orbital laser, it's mainly fine. I know that you actually had to face against the other 4 phantom versions of the bosses, but they're actually not that bad. Kiryu leaves you alone if you don't touch him. Majima is weak. Sajima is like a little bit tankier, so you focus on that first. And that's pretty much it. Again, I'm not saying that it's easy, because no, you do need to like have done the grinding for it and know roughly how to approach it in the strategy, because one wrong step can really cost you. Like I believe I died the first time that I tried it on the fight that has the hippie guy, the cultist and the biker. Unfortunately, you need a little bit of luck with the paralysis there, because especially the biker, he can crit on every hit if I'm not mistaken, so it can be quite dangerous. Next attempt I did better on that one, and of course the final Amon, it's not really that easy, but well, there's some strategies for it. I'm not gonna go deep into it because this was a more superficial level, and I know that I'm almost reaching the hour mark, so in the end I really couldn't keep it as down as I wanted. But I think this was the last thing that I wanted to mention. And that, I believe, was the last thing remaining for mentioning everything that can be completed on this game. As a bonus fact, I guess I forgot to mention it, but the game actually has some of the other arcade games, especially the ones that were featured in Yakuza 0, like Fantasy Zone and Auto Run, but for some reason there is no completion list requirements for them, so you can completely ignore them if you want. If you played the previous Yakuza games, then you'll see a glaring lack of getting through legendary mode in this one. And I think that's because originally that was DLC, maybe for the Japanese version, but I think they complained, and for the overseas version it actually released within the game. Unfortunately, Infinite World did not manage to receive this treatment because Premium Adventure and Legendary difficulty on that one are actually DLC, and they are also achievements. So, oh boy, I'm not really looking forward to that one since I didn't have to do it on this one. I am aware that they really do jack up the stats of the enemy, so even if you're max level, it's not gonna be a walk in the park. But since it's not an actual requirement in this one, then you don't really have to do it. So I guess I just wanna say some closing words, mostly my experience on the game. I'm making this video like almost over a month after I initially finished everything. I did kind of slack off a little bit, I had some other stuff to take care of, but I wanted to definitely come back and make this video at last. Yakuza 7 was an insanely amazing game, and right now it is the contender for pretty much my game of the year so far. I think I can finally see all the great praise that the game got, and a bit of a rejuvenation to the series. To a degree, I think it's just redefining, and I know that they mainly kept the Judgment games to take the broader aspects. I skipped it for now. I do know that Judgment 1 actually takes place before 7, but in the interest of time I wanted to complete the mainline Yakuza series before I did Judgment, because they are more tightly connected and their characters are as well. But I really did have a lot of fun almost every single time that I was playing the game. The story is really good, I love the characters. The fact that they made the new city, which completely overshone Kamurocho because it is just much bigger, and there's a bunch of other activities. The new minigames like Conquest and the Seagull Cinema are pretty fun actually, and I did enjoy playing through them. So honestly, it's just a lot of praise all around. Especially the story, what they presented and what that left for the future of this world has me really interested, and I really want to know what happens in Yakuza 8. But that's gonna have to wait, because first is Gaiden. I think that's everything that I wanted to mention so far. So while I finish this video, that's the next thing that I'm gonna do. I may see you here in a few months for a potential video discussing Gaiden. But for now, I think that is everything. I do hope that the tips that I gave you here can give you some help in your quest to complete this game as well. But for now, this will be all. Don't forget, you're always welcome in my town. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.